Hello everyone, welcome to the monthly NRHS Iowa Chapter YouTube slideshow. If you're interested in more information about the Iowa Chapter, please visit iowanrhs.com. There you can join the chapter or renew your membership and order any of the great products that the Iowa Chapter has to offer, including DVDs and photo collections. Please enjoy the program this month and consider visiting iowanrhs.com. Hello everyone, welcome to the August 2022 Iowa Chapter NRHS and Cedar Rapids Area Rail Fans YouTube slideshow. My name is Tom Hogan. I'll be hosting you this afternoon, and we are going to be seeing a collection of slides and, for the first time, some film also that's been digitally rendered from the Bill Ohde collection. Bill's son, John, has donated the collection of slides and films to the Iowa Chapter for preservation, and we are in the process of scanning and digitally converting those for everyone else to be able to enjoy. So, with that having been said, let's jump right in. Just a little bit of background about Bill Ohde. He lived for a long time in Manning, Iowa, out in western Iowa, and he was a big fan of the Milwaukee Road. His backyard basically backed right up to the Milwaukee Road main in Manning. He also had a Milwaukee Road caboose that was parked in his backyard, and now he did an excellent job of documenting the Milwaukee Road, specifically west of Perry, as you're about to see. And that's where this program really is going to focus on today. So here we see the Milwaukee Road 2035, and this is in a big cut that's near Manning that this train is going through right now. So we're actually going to start out on the east end. This was the furthest east slide of Bill's that I was able to identify. We have the Milwaukee Road 2066 here going west through the Marion Yard, clear out in my hometown, or my current location anyway, Marion. Also see just the edge of a Marion switch engine over there on the side as well. This train that's going through Marion would have been prior to, this is a 1978 slide, by the way, and this would have been prior to the cutover at Tama Tower, given that this is a through train. You can see some piggybacks there, some agricultural equipment on a flat car a couple cars back. So this is definitely a pre-cutover slide from the Milwaukee Road. They still would have been operating the entire Iowa division as through service at the time that this slide was taken. We're going to move quite a ways west now out into central Iowa. This is taken at Melbourne. Melbourne was a spot where there was a main and a siding as well for meets, and there's this wooden overhead bridge, which I'm not sure if that exists anymore. It's been a while since I've been through Melbourne. This is part of the Milwaukee Road that's been abandoned, just like in Marion as well. And right here, what we're seeing is the evidence of the Union Pacific and Milwaukee Road pool agreement. So the pool trains that the Milwaukee built, and this was touched on by Rob Leachman in much more detail a couple of months ago. But basically, this would have been a through train where the UP was building blocks for the Milwaukee, and the Milwaukee in turn was building blocks for North Platte and beyond on the UP. These trains were interchanged at Council Bluffs. And we have a couple of the UP's finest here, some U-boats leading the charge through Melbourne. The Milwaukee was an entirely CTC operation across the Iowa division, and here we can see the pot signal for departing the siding, the train has just gotten a clear, and it looks like they've made their meet and they're getting ready to go. And you can just see the double-headed searchlight mast to the right of the grab irons on the front of the locomotive there. Kind of hard to make out in the trees, but it's definitely there. So just some evidence of the CTC operation that the Milwaukee had. This was a 1977 slide. And here's another slide of the same sequence. This is also at Melbourne. It kind of gives you an idea of the track layout at Melbourne, where you had a house track and a track for the industry over there on the side, that small elevator. The depot is still there. And I'm not 100% sure. I think that the photographer here, Bill Ohde, he might have been standing on the CGW right-of-way to take this shot, because the CGW went overhead of the Milwaukee at Melbourne. Now we're going to go a little further west. We have the High Bridge at Madrid. This is actually the old High Bridge, which this particular train is using to cross the Des Moines River Valley. And if you look carefully behind the steel structure, you can see the concrete piers for the new High Bridge in the background. It's kind of an interesting story. This is 1972, and the Milwaukee was building the new bridge, and at the same time the Corps of Engineers was working on building the dam further downstream for the Saylorville Lake as well. So the Milwaukee was putting up this brand new bridge across the Des Moines River Valley, and later on the UP ended up using some of the bridge spans on their bridge at Boone. And if you check out Dana Grief's program from a couple of months ago, you can find more information out about that as well. So now we're actually in Perry. We have the Milwaukee's bicentennial SD40 leading with a couple of Jeeps. This would be an eastbound grain train at the Perry Yard. And this guy is probably just holding back, waiting for his turn to depart, I would guess. So this is, let me just see here. This is a 1970, where are we going here? I believe this is a 1977 shot. 1975. Okay, this is a 1975 shot. April of 1975 this was taken. So next we are in July of 1973, and here we have the Milwaukee. We have the 351, 352, and 2049, also again facing eastbound at Perry. And you can see over on the left side the searchlight signals that protected the east end of the yard with the sawed-off sides to make sure that they would not be clipped by cars on adjacent tracks. Always kind of a little neat mile marker or indication that you're at Perry. This slide, we converted it to black and white during the editing process. But this is from 1976. You have one of the FP45s that has no longer been required in passenger service and has been moved over to freight service, the number 3. And then a Milwaukee Road switch engine. An SW there, the 495, sitting in front of the Perry Yard office awaiting its next assignment. Another shot in Perry. This time we've got a single GE U-boat out on the front, the 2801, and several Milwaukee Road Jeeps, and then maybe an SD40 that's fourth out back there. Kind of hard to tell for sure. But we are looking at the Perry Yard here, and another one of these pool trains where the Milwaukee and UP shared power between North Platte and Chicago to operate these trains. And just a little longer view, it gives you an idea of some of the traffic that moved on these pool trains. You have your piggybacks on flat cars on the head end, those high cube box cars in the middle, and then more piggyback flats right behind it. And again, we're in Perry. This time we have a couple of U-boats that are sandwiching the Milwaukee Road Jeeps, and we have a crew on board. It looks like they are shoving back to their train to tie on and maybe start an air test before they depart Perry. And on this particular shot, you can see the westbound arriving and yarding his train at Perry, and you can see just across the top of the flat car, there's the opposite look at those searchlight signals with the sawed-off sides. Milwaukee Road system grain hopper there, right out front. And just a nice view of some of the Milwaukee Road's Jeeps, the 2067, 2011, and 2017, all working in the Perry yard, assembling an outbound train. I see somebody's grip got left on the ground there. I don't know if they're waiting to load that up, or maybe he walked away and forgot about it. And here we see the opposite view of the east end of the Perry yard. We're actually looking at the M&L, which would have been the C&W by this time, which crossed on 3 diamonds in front of the east lead of the Milwaukee yard. And we have a eastbound train that looks like it's all put together and ready to go, and maybe just waiting his turn to work his way across the diamond. So quite a bit of the Milwaukee Road did survive. There were a couple of sections that the C&W took over operations after the Milwaukee embargoed. The C&W operated through Madrid for a while, and then they also put in a connection off of the M&L into Perry and continued to switch customers in Perry off of the Milwaukee as well. So some of this survived all the way up through the UP merger and into the very early 2000s. Even though it wasn't a through route, there were definitely sections that were disconnected. So now we're looking at a westbound, and we're getting ready to depart Perry. A couple of SD40s out front, UP SD40s there. We've got some piggyback traffic. We've got some auto frames right behind the trailers, and that's an Illinois Central trailer, it looks like, on that first flat car. And here we have another view of a UP pool train. Again, similar loading, auto frames and piggybacks on the head end, and then some of those box cars, which I believe may have been in some perishable service on the head end as well. The Milwaukee 2046 and 2038 are your leaders today. This is a 1977 shot of a westbound at Perry. Moving along, we have another UP pool train, but this time no UP power on it at all. Just 3 Milwaukee Road Jeeps. And this is a pretty classic consist for the Milwaukee, 3 Jeep 40s to lead across the Iowa division. It was pretty regularly seen. You got the Perry Yard office there in the background as well. And just a little lower elevation, you get to see those Milwaukee Road switch stands. A lot of those are still surviving today as well. Here we have a Milwaukee Road Jeep 30 leading a couple of UP U-boats. These Jeep 30s, you know, I don't know that I've seen a whole lot of photos of them. Obviously, there were quite a few that the Milwaukee owned and operated. But to see them out on this west end of the Iowa division, I feel like is a little bit rare. So here we've got kind of a mixed consist. The Jeep 30, the 1009 on the head end, followed by an FP45. Excuse me. Followed by a couple more Jeeps further back. Again, we're on the east end of Perry here. And some early container on flat car business that the Milwaukee had managed to generate. 3 short containers on what I believe is an 89-foot flat car in this case. So this was an early attempt at container on flat car traffic. And this is from 1973, February of 1973. And here we see, I was just joking about how you don't see very many Jeep 30s. And here's a consist of 4 Jeep 30s and an FB unit. And then maybe a switch engine 6th out. We've got a big consist on this particular train today. There's another shot from Perry. This time 1974. Looking at a westbound. And just the reverse view, we've got this another UP SD40. The SD40s and the GEs were very common on these pool trains. And then you have the Milwaukee Road engines with the passenger unit in the middle that's been relegated to freight service with the advent of Amtrak. This is a 1976 shot. And next we're just looking down the track, looking to the west out of Perry. This is looking at a couple of double-masted signals looking down the westward side of the double main as you would be departing Perry to the west. And this shot now, as we leave Perry, we're starting to move further west. This is at Dawson, although it's actually a little bit outside of Dawson. Dawson is actually where that elevator is in the background. And you've got some SD9s leading this particular consist today. Next, we work our way west to Herndon. Now, Herndon was kind of an important station on the Milwaukee. This was where the Spencer to Des Moines line crossed the East and West Iowa division. You actually had a Y with 4 connecting legs going around it. And the Milwaukee operated down to Des Moines off of this connection. And in this case, they have grain hoppers, which I'm guessing are staged for Albert City, which would be going north towards Spencer off of the branch line as well. And here we see with the sequence of shots that we have here, I was kind of trying to piecemeal everything together. I believe that this is a westbound that has departed Perry with a couple of SD9s. They're picking up these grain hoppers and then going to head north on the branch line at Herndon and probably spot the grain hoppers into Albert City. And here you can actually see one of the Albert City farmers' grain hoppers that's actually right there on the head end. And here we have a meet that's actually occurring at Herndon. This is a westbound UP pool train, which is meeting a southbound or eastbound loaded grain train. He's waiting his turn to get into Perry after the westbound goes by. And you can see how he's kind of snaking around that corner, which is the connection to the northbound side heading toward Albert City and Spencer. This is, I believe, the first gravel road crossing north of Herndon. This is this would be an empty grain train that's heading north this day on the branch line. And here you got a really good profile of these 2 Milwaukee Road SD9s. And you can see very clearly the short fuel tanks that the Milwaukee had these specially designed with for branch line service, which helped reduce the weight because the Milwaukee had some very, very light rail in some of these branch lines and especially at some of the customers as well. So a couple of these special service kind of branch line SD9s, the 544 and 549 that are departing Herndon, in this case heading north. And now, as we continue along, we're actually at Bagley this time, and we have 3 Milwaukee Road Jeeps leading an eastbound in this case. We're at Bagley, and this is January of, January of 1973. This is an eastbound near Bayard. This time we have the same train, but a little bit further west at Bayard. This is very close to where the end of the track is, where the BNSF currently operates from Bayard back to Council Bluffs. That section from Bayard to Council Bluffs was saved by a shippers association. They contracted with the BN to operate it, and now the BNSF actually owns the track. They purchased it at some point, and they operate it. So this is very close to the end of track, the current end of track at Bayard, where the BNSF has taken over operation. So this one kind of fooled me at first. This is obviously a couple of Milwaukee Road F units, and then I believe that is a fuel tender third out, and then we have a Fairbanks Morse Trainmaster that's fourth out. I'm guessing because this is an eastbound, we're at Coon Rapids this time in December of 1970, and that Fairbanks Morse engine is probably headed to Savannah, if I had to guess. It might even be dead in tow. I know a lot of those Fairbanks Morse engines ended up in Savannah at the end of their careers. So here we have a Milwaukee Jeep 30 and Jeep 40, or excuse me, is that, yeah, I think it's a Jeep 30 and a Jeep 40, and they're headed west here at Coon Rapids. And here we have another branch line SD9, actually 2 branch line SD9s and a Jeep 30 in the middle. And we are, again, this time we're in town at Coon Rapids, headed eastbound. And just outside of Coon Rapids a little bit, but we're looking at the 1511, the 2016, and the 1503. And this is on a westbound outside of Coon Rapids. So next we have a sequence of shots. So this is something else that I've discovered that Bill liked to do quite a bit of. Taking the sequence of shots of a passing train. He also has films, which we'll see a little bit of that later on as well. But even in the slides, the sequence makes for an interesting little diorama of a passing train. So now we're on this curve near Templeton. You can just barely see the double-headed signal mast there next to the locomotive. And it's going to come up closer. We have, again, a Jeep 30 leading. And you can see them really leaning into that elevation coming around the curve. We're in 1975, February of 1975 for this sequence of shots. And a close-up as the engineer offers a wave, rolling by the crossing. And it was kind of a short train on this particular day. We're already seeing the rear of the train coming around the curve, and you'll see in the next photo, there really wasn't much to it. I'm guessing this was probably about a 30-car train, maybe. A couple of piggybacks right near the caboose. And yeah, right there, you can just barely see the head end. That might even only be a 20-car train. And then that Milwaukee Road, I guess formerly lettered Milwaukee Road trailer, van trailer that is sitting on the flat car. And you can see that's right next to the caboose. So we're literally maybe 20 or 25 cars long on this day's train. and the final going away shot as he continues around the curve at Templeton. Also at Templeton, there was a siding, and this particular day, Bill managed to catch a meet at the siding. So we have a westbound in the foreground and an eastbound who looks like he's throttling up that's sitting there waiting for him. The westbound, there's kind of a broadside shot of him as he's pulling by. I believe that this is the Templeton siding, and we are in 1978 on this particular day. And now we make our way to Manning, Bill Ohde's actual hometown, and we see that we actually have a C&W detour train. So this 949, I found it interesting because this is one of the units that ended up getting assigned as an SD45 to the Milwaukee pool trains when they were detouring. Well, it wasn't even detouring, they were just doing trackage rights from Tama Tower to 5th Street Clinton. And so on this particular day, the 949 is actually on the C&W, but it's in Falcon service. This is a one of their hot trailer piggyback trains. And we have an SD45, we have a UPB unit, and then I think we have an SD40 is the third unit. And in this particular case, he's detouring on the Milwaukee because of a derailment at Arion. Not Marion, but Arion, where the IC and the C&W split. So again, we're looking at Manning, and here you can see really clear evidence of where the Milwaukee was double-mained at one time. The Milwaukee had an entirely double-main ABS Iowa division from Council Bluffs all the way to Green Island at one time. And over the course of the years, they took up the second main in many places. They left some sidings, long sidings in place, and then installed CTC to replace the ABS system. And so in a lot of places, there's real clear evidence of where the second main was. And here you can even see it with the width of this overhead highway bridge and the width of the overhead rail bridge in the background. Very obvious evidence of how this was at one time a double main. And you can even see the main it's fairly well maintained. I mean, there's some spots where it's kind of muddy there, but the grass is pretty well cleared up. We're in 1976 at this particular time. And here we have, again at Manning, we have the Milwaukee 64A leading past Manning in March of 1973. I believe this is Bill's car over on the right. Looks like maybe a Crown Victoria, but I can't say for certain. It might be too early for a Crown Victoria anyway. In this case, the Manning station sign is kind of hidden by the telegraph box or the call box there on the right. But you can see very clearly the remnants of where the platform was for the station before it was torn down in Manning. And here we have another set of Milwaukee Road B unit or F units, F, A, and B. And this time they're cut away and the conductor is given hand signals as they're doing some work at Manning. That leader would have also been a passenger unit at one time. And it also has now been relegated to freight service as we are in 1971, October of 1971. So Amtrak has just taken over a couple months earlier passenger service. And so you have all these F, A, and B units that have been sent back for freight service instead. And here, this is this bridge that's on the outskirts of Manning, and we have a run-by shot, just two shots in the sequence this time, but we have the head end coming around the curve, and then on the rear, we have a Penn Central auto rack, open auto rack on the rear, and a Rock Island boxcar, and then that classic Milwaukee Road bay window caboose. And this particular sequence is from July of 1977. And here, this is not the same consist, but just a close-up of the Manning Station sign. Another one of those neat open-sided auto racks. And then the Milwaukee Road caboose here, bringing up the rear. So, this is another Milwaukee Road UP pool train. We're outside of Manning again. What I find interesting about this is the cut that this train is going through. I know that there's a lot of engineering work that goes into building a railroad, but in this particular case, they really do seem to have gone out of their way to build a flat railroad through this massive cut. And if you look back a couple of slides, I forgot to point it out, but the fill and the bridge that they were on, that the train was running on the other side of Manning, again, speaks to that cut and fill mentality that they had when the Milwaukee was upgrading the Iowa division at one time. And here we have the 500 leading an eastbound at Manning. 500 and then a maybe a Jeep behind it. It's kind of hard to say, but this one is a grain train that's heading east. And we, in this case, we are in January of 1980. So we're very, very close to the end of operations on the Milwaukee Road here. Right now, this is a big consist here. This is a branch line train coming from Sioux City and waiting his turn to get on the main line at Manila. So Manila was another spot where the Milwaukee, they had a small set out track and connecting track to the branch line to go up to Sioux City. And again, you see these you see the branch line engines, the smaller Jeeps that were operating on this particular part of the railroad. So in this particular case, we have rock cars, Milwaukee Road system hoppers. It's kind of amazing to me how many of these you still see running around the Canadian Pacific from time to time, that these have still survived. This is when they were relatively new. And this is a set out that's being made of rock cars for a maintenance away project. They're being set out at Manila. So you see the conductor walking over to make a cut on his train, and then giving hand signals to take the train ahead, and he is going to set out those rock hoppers. And here you see they're set out next to the depot. And then they will be picked up by a work train, and the Milwaukee, for all the hard time and grief they get about not doing maintenance work, this is a clear example of a time that it did happen. This is, although, from July of 1972. So this rock train was for the Herndon branch going up to Spencer. And this was being set out at Manila, and then it would have been picked up by a work train and taken to wherever they were going to dump the rock. Here we have another maintenance away type move. We have a crane working, picking up scrap along the side of the right-of-way. This is another example of the high fills, this cut and fill mentality that they had building the railroad in some places. Sitting on a pretty high fill right here. And we continue to move west. This is this is an eastbound, an undated photo of an eastbound, also near Manila. And a UP pool train with a set of UP SD40s that look like they're pretty new in this particular photo. This one is from, let me just check my notes here. Oh, this one is undated as well. And we have a pair of the Milwaukee FP45s, the number 1 and the number 4, leading a westbound at Manila in February of 1973. And here you can see very clearly the connecting track for the branch line that headed up to Sioux City, which is in the foreground. The train is actually on the Green Island to Council Bluffs main line. And now we make our way west to Defiance. We have a work train with a couple of cranes and looks like maybe some riprap cars there in the middle. And this train is clearing up on the house track at Defiance. And he gets out of the way so that the main line eastbound can run by. This is September of 1972, and you can see the crew is all out giving some friendly waves as they meet here at Defiance. And the final sequence of slides that I have here is of a BN coal train. The final couple of years, 1978 and a little bit of 1979, these BN coal trains were operated between Council Bluffs and Wisconsin on the Milwaukee. And here we have, you can see the set of rotary hoppers with one end painted yellow. And this is an empty. He's headed back to Council Bluffs to be interchanged back to the BN. Got some Milwaukee, maybe an SD-40 leading a U-boat, and then a couple of Milwaukee Road Jeeps, perhaps, that's leading this long cut of empty coal cars. Here we see this is another coal train, kind of a close-up of the steel coal hoppers that were prevalent at the time. This is from December of 1979. And a BN caboose to bring up the rear. And our final shot is actually after the Milwaukee gave up operations of the Iowa division. They attempted to abandon all of it, and this Shippers Association saved the west end of the railroad. And here we have the BN taking one of their very first trains out to Bayard. And we have some BN SD9s that are heading east at this time near Manning. The BN 6159, 6160, and 6198. So that is the last slide that I have to share with you. Next, we are going to flip over to some film. And I have this queued up to show you. Now, what I'm going to tell you about these films is that I'm not sure how they're going to render exactly to YouTube, but it's going to give you a taste of some of the film material that Ohde took. Now, I'm going to start the film going. This first train that we're seeing, this is a westbound going over Highway 59 near Defiance, Iowa. And I don't believe that this is a UP pool train. I think this is the regular Milwaukee Manifest heading west. And it actually looks like it has a significant amount of grain traffic. The next sequence that we're going to see is going to be, this is a train that's coming up into Albert City. So I believe this is the Albert City elevator. This Albert City is still operated, from Albert City up to Marathon, is still operated by the UP as a stub track, and they still serve the Albert City elevator. So in this case, we have a train for Albert City that's pulling by, which I think is allowing a maintenance away train to get out. We kind of saw that sitting on the elevator track there in the background. So just so that everyone is aware, this is going to be some of the material that's going to be available on the Bill Ohde DVD, which will be for sale. It's up for pre-order right now, and I expect that it's going to ship at the end of September. So if you go to the Iowa NRHS website, you will be able to find the Bill Ohde Milwaukee Road Volume 1 collection, and what you're seeing right now is some of the footage that's going to be on that Milwaukee Road DVD. So we're continuing to see this train running by, and now we have, this is a westbound coming off the Iowa main line onto the Herndon to Spencer line. Train originated at Perry. So we just saw the head brakeman drop off, and just rolling the train by now. It looks to me like I'm not exactly sure. Maybe the east switch was out of service. Apparently they had to pull the whole train by and then shove back onto the connection track before they could depart north. So they pulled by, now they're making a shoving move. And we can see, yep, that's definitely shoving onto a sidetrack there. And I believe that the brakeman would be walking back over. There's the station sign for Herndon. Got the 543 for a liter today. So he's shoving back onto this connection track. Looks like he's just about cleared up the crossovers, and there's the brakeman lining the switches back. And once they get in the clear, then he lines both crossovers back, and they might be ready to take off to the north now. And they are, in fact, on the connection track, and they're going to head around the curve and head north for Spencer. So this is a train that would have gone up there and worked whatever stations were required along the branch line. It says this is 1970 from the notes that Bill took pretty good notes off of these films and slides that he has. It says this is 1970. And here we see actually heading up the branch line, coming around. Yep, you can see the rear of his train coming around that connecting track, and he's heading up the branch line now. Making pretty good time going around that connection, it looks like. There's more of those container on flat cars. It looks similar to the ones that we saw a slide of, but I don't know where they would be headed to on the branch line there. And there's the crummy, so it looks like this is going to be the end of this particular run by. And here we are back at Defiance, and we have a main line westbound. And here's one departing Perry, approaching the Raccoon River Bridge, crossing the Raccoon River Bridge. It's back there back where those auto racks are. So this is a westbound departing Perry. And that group of Jeep 40s in the lead, it looks like. That trio of Jeep 40s was pretty commonplace on leading Milwaukee Road trains. A lot of flat cars there on the head end as well. So this guy is headed west. So because these are all 8mm, there's no sound to any of them. I do overdub it just with kind of background music, just to fill the void. But the filming that Bill Ohde did was all in. Look at that long line of auto racks. I wish I could tell what kind of cars those were. Long line of auto racks there in the middle of the train. Finished autos. And why are we zooming in? Something interesting there. Oh, it looks like some combine loads. A couple of harvesters. Maybe some IH and some John Deere. Here's the Milwaukee Road Centennial unit. Westbound at Manila. It looks like we have cars staged at Manila for the branch line potentially. And this guy is pulling up. I don't know. He's going kind of slow. It makes me wonder if he's pulling up to do work or if it's just because it's the Milwaukee and they're just operating 10 mile an hour just because. But this has to be later than 1970 because that Centennial unit wasn't painted that color until several years later. Oh yeah, so they are doing work. The head brakeman's getting ready to drop off, and they're definitely stopping in Manila to do some kind of work. There's a Manila depot, and the switch stands for the connecting tracks. We're going to get another run-by of this Centennial unit again, it looks like. Classic Milwaukee Road SD40 right there, number 156. And now we're back at Manning. And we see the Centennial unit on a different day running by man. Look at how much those units are bouncing. We've got a UP pool train. And is that the end of the film? No, I don't think so. I think we got one more. Or a couple more eastbound. There's a westbound. Says we're near Manning again, according to the notes. And it looks like we've got auto frames on the head end. That would indicate that this is also a UP pool train. Lots and lots of auto frames right there on the head end. And coming around big curve there at Manning. All right, and I'm going to show you a little bit more of one other film. I'm going to get this pulled up here quick. This is some of the Milwaukee Road's operation in the electrified territory. This film is based off of Harleton, Montana to Avery, Idaho. So in this case, we have a group of, it looks like Milwaukee Road SD40s, and we are westbound near Harleton with SD40s and an FP45, it says. And this is May 22nd of 1973. There's that FP45. And it looks like we're making pretty good speed going down the railroad. And here we have one of the Little Joes leading on this day. This is actually, this was all filmed on the same day. This is all from May 22nd of 1973. So in this case, we have the E78 leading with the 2059, 2027, and the 2005. And here you can see we're very clearly going through the foothills of the mountains in Montana. And it looks like we've got auto racks on the head end of this one as well. There's maybe some construction equipment or a cherry picker maybe sitting on that flat car. So another run by. Must have driven ahead and gotten in front of it again. It doesn't look like, I mean, these guys look like they're moving pretty well. I don't know how easy of a task it would be. The film actually froze up there for a minute. I don't know how easy of a task it would have been to keep getting ahead of these guys. I don't know what track speed was at this time. But we have another run by of the same train. And we have a third run by. And it says we are approaching the Vendôme Loop. Vendôme Loop? Alright, here's some box cabs. Oh, this is Piedmont is where we're at with this shot. So we have some box cabs that we're going to pick up a train and depart. I think that they might be making a meet here in the yard, it looks like. Or they're just doing some switching. And I can't tell for sure. That might be the same Little Joe that was leading before, it's really just not high enough resolution to actually know for certain. Oh no, we got a couple of little Joes leading this time. So this is a different train. And he's got that one load, that one construction equipment or backhoe or something there on the head end. So they're picking up a couple of cars. There come the box cabs again. In the older Milwaukee Road paint scheme. Yeah, we're definitely doing work here at Piedmont. So we have one train pulling up. We have a second one pulling up behind him. Or just some light power, I guess. It's just those, yeah. Just more shots of these box cabs doing switching. So pretty neat stuff. It's pretty rare material. I don't know how much film of the Milwaukee Road in Idaho and Montana has survived, but this is definitely some pretty rare material that you're getting to see here. And yep, the box cabs are just making more switching moves there in the yard. And now it does look like we've got this pair of little Joes that's departing Piedmont. And as it heads out, got a pretty decent sized train today too, it looks like. Oh, and then the box cabs, they got box cabs cut in as helpers. That's interesting. All right. It's tough to tell because the film skipped. I don't know how much train was in between the head end and the helpers. But we're obviously heading up grade into the mountains. You can very clearly see the mountain range there in the background. So, continuing our trip westbound, and it looks like there's a lot of elevation in that curve. Look at that. As he's going around, he's climbing quite a bit. It makes me wonder how far are we right along a highway here, or did he have to walk in a ways to get this roll by? It doesn't look like that there's a lot of road nearby. There comes the helper set again. Going around the curve. And here we see, so it's ABS out there in the electrified territory. And this is scenes of a cab ride. And this, it says, is from the E20. So a cab ride, which I believe the E20 would have been one of the little Joes. So we're heading literally into the mountains here in the electrified territory in western Montana. So as we round this curve, I can't make out the station sign here. But it looks like it says cab view from the E20 leaving Butte eastbound to Three Forks past Janney and Pipestone Pass Tunnel. So we'll be able to, and then around the Vendome through Cedric, and then I think that's the end of the film. Really high fill that we're on here. And we're gonna watch this film all the way up until we get to the tunnel for the Pipestone Pass. And then you can see where they dynamited their way through the rock to make this rock cut. Looks like a tie project is in order. Again, this is 1973, so the Milwaukee at this time was still committed to making this part of the railroad work. Looks like they got a lot of ties laid out for a tie project there along the side. And there would be one of the substations for the electrical system. I am not sure which substation exactly that we're looking at. I would have to see a station sign to know for sure. Oh, Janney. There we go. And here is the Pipestone Pass Tunnel. So we're very short tunnel that we're going through. I believe only a couple hundred feet. And then popping right back out the other side. So that is going to be the end of our program for this month. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and make sure and go to the Iowa chapter website, iowanrhs.com, and pre-orders are available for the Bill Ohde Milwaukee Road Volume 1, which is going to be film of a DVD converted, or film converted to DVD for the Milwaukee Road in western Iowa, as well as through this electrified territory. There's film from Montana and Idaho, and just some really great material. So go check that out, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. This presentation of the Iowa chapter has been brought to you by Steel Highway. Search for Steel Highway rail cams on YouTube, or go to steel-highway.com and order your copy of the magazine that every rail fan needs. Steel Highway, the magazine for the modern rail fan.